we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Pace and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, July 29th, 2024, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Cinemaster's Reviews. Been a few weeks since I've done a review. I think the last one was when we reviewed Maxine and Kinds of Kindness. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I've just been dealing with some personal issues just with where I live. There was 1 week where I was going to do a review, but then the area just had a blackout, so I couldn't really. So obviously, if I don't have power, I can't go live. And then the other week, there was a good 2 weeks where I just did not have AC in my apartment, so I just really needed to get that fixed. But thankfully, I have AC now. Obviously, I have power, and I'm very happy I was able to come on tonight to talk about probably what is going to be a few more weeks of summer left, but what's probably going to be the biggest movie of the summer, and that is Deadpool and Wolverine, directed by Sean Levy. This is the third movie in the Deadpool franchise, each of them with a different director. I believe Tim Miller directed the first one, David Leitch directed the second one. Now we have Sean Levy of the Night at the Museum movies. He directed Free Guy. But of course, you don't come to these movies usually for the director. You come for it for Ryan Reynolds as the titular role of Deadpool, a.k.a. Wade Wilson. While this is the third movie in the Deadpool franchise, this is the first Deadpool movie after Disney has bought Fox. So a lot of people were wondering, like, were we going to get another Deadpool movie now with obviously Disney wanting to move into a different direction with their own Marvel movies? They kind of sort of canceled the old X-Men canon. So were we going to get Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool? Well, it turns out we are. And this movie serves as not only the newest entry in the MCU, it serves as a great send-off to the Fox universe of Marvel movies, with the character of Deadpool at front and center. To give just a little brief synopsis of the plot without going into too many spoilers, the TVA, aka the Time Variant Association, tracks down Deadpool and says, "Hey, your universe is in trouble. It's going to collide it's going to collide in of itself. But we want to protect you and we want to keep you around. So why don't you stay with us and then just watch the world get destroyed?" Deadpool essentially says, "No, I don't want to do that. I'm not just going to let you destroy my world." So he goes into another universe, gets that universe's Wolverine. It makes very clear that that Wolverine is not is not the Wolverine that died at the end of Logan. It's a different Wolverine that let everyone in his universe die. And they go through an entire journey through a place called the Void, which is where all the dead Fox characters live. And they're trying to get back to the TVA office to take down Paradox, played by Matthew McFadden. In the Void, there's a ruler by the name of Nova, played by Emma Corrin. And lots of hijinks ensue. I know this sounds a little confusing, and I think this just comes down to the fact that the character of Deadpool is so meta at this point, and it's making so many jokes about obviously it being it being a comic book movie, it making comments on the state of the industry, on the fact that now these movies are now produced by Disney instead of Fox. A lot of jokes about that, so I understand that plot synopsis sounds a little bit complicated to explain. It's really not that complicated of a plot, as you can imagine. You're really just here, mainly, if we're being honest, to watch Ryan Reynolds give a bunch of jokes, kill some people in really gruesome ways, a lot of R-rated action, a lot of R-rated jokes. And for that, I think the movie really does deliver. I cannot say this is the cleanest movie nor the best superhero movie in the world, but for what it is, I would be lying if I said I didn't have a lot of fun. And something I want to commend Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds for doing. I think this movie works both very well as a Deadpool movie and as an entry in the MCU. And I say it works as an entry in the MCU because I'd say with the exception of referencing the TVA, which we've seen in a TV series like Loki. We know about universe jumping, obviously, from the Doctor Strange films. With the exception of that, this movie very much stays in the realm of Deadpool and in the realm of the Fox X-Men universe, which I think was a very, very effective way to keep fans not getting too confused as to what as to where we are in this universe. And it also lets this franchise keep its identity. I think the reason why people like the Deadpool movies when they first came out in 2016 was it felt so different. We had not seen R-rated superhero movies to this big budget level and do it in this effective way before. Obviously, we've had things like Blade. Obviously, we had some other things, but we had never really seen like a real like jokey comedic take on comic book movies the way Deadpool does. And Deadpool and Wolverine very much serves more as the third Deadpool movie as opposed to the 30-somethingest MCU movie, even though it does make very clear it is now a part of the MCU. The real-life producer of the MCU, Kevin Feige, is referenced many times in a sort of a jokey fashion. Again, if you're not a fan of Deadpool's humor, this movie is not going to do anything to sway your mind as to say, like, oh man, this one, they're really elevating it. Like, I think one of the effective things is I think Ryan Reynolds at this point knows what he's doing with these movies, knows the audience he's appealing to, and to me, it was just really effective. I didn't say what I thought about the original Deadpool movies. I loved that first Deadpool movie when it first came out. I thought it was one of the best comic movies I had ever seen. As I've gotten older, I've definitely tapered my expectations a little more. I still do think it's really good, but I don't think it's like this masterpiece. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think it was still a really fun movie. I don't like Deadpool 2 as much. I'm just not a fan of Julian Dennison as an actor that much. And I think the fact that movie puts so much of the weight of the story on him, I'm just not the biggest fan of that film. Although I do really like Josh Brolin as Cable. I think he was a really fun foil for Deadpool. Really kind of sad that he didn't show up in this movie. I wish they would have come back, but maybe that was just part of the contract stuff that we could really only get Ryan Reynolds and the actor who plays Peter. If you remember from Deadpool 2, Peter's this guy that answers a want ad from Wade to join his team. Doesn't have any powers, but he just becomes Wade's best friend. And he's back in this movie, and he has a lot of fun. The actor who plays Dopinder is back in this movie. Without going to spoilers, there are some decisions it makes at the beginning with Wade's character that I wasn't that big a fan of, if I'm being honest. With the exception of the opening scene, which I think is brilliant. It's one of my favorite action scenes, I think, in the MCU thus far. I think Sean Levy, he's not the most interesting director from like a visual standpoint when you're just having characters just talk to each other or just communicate. When he's directing action, he knows how to direct in a really fun way. And I don't want to spoil the first action set piece of this movie because it is in a really, really fun and just disturbing way of just how over the top this movie goes with its opening scene. But that opening scene is great. But after that, I'd say the first 20 minutes of this movie, I think it takes a little while to get started, and I just wasn't finding the humor all that funny. I think the humor in this movie is a little bit hit or miss. I think for the most part it hits, and I think the majority of the humor that I think works is when they are making those meta jokes, when they are making those references to the state of the comic book industry. Like something I really, really love is the movie very much knows that Deadpool is coming into the MCU when the MCU is not in the greatest state in terms of quality that it maybe could be. And I think that was a really, really fun thing that the movie does do. But yeah, I definitely do think the humor was a little messy. It's not as obscene or as grotesque as the other Deadpool movies. Maybe that was a studio note from Disney. I doubt it. It is still an R-rated movie, so it definitely does go to the places that you want it to go, but it definitely seems a little toned down in terms of its humor. I just want to talk about Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. I don't think anyone was really expecting Ryan Reynolds to skip a beat here. He's always been an actor that felt like he was born to play Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds is such like a wisecracking guy, someone who always knows how to like make these little jokes. Even with like, I'm not sure how much of it is in the script, how much of it is improvised, but he really just feels like he's just in his element when he is in the costume, when he is making these really funny jokes. Ryan Reynolds is great, but I really, really want to shout out Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman, of course, the last time we saw him as Logan was in 2017's Logan, which is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. One of the great like stand-ups to a character I think I've ever seen in movies ever. And I think going into this movie, I was thinking like, is Hugh Jackman still going to have the juice? Has he lost any steps? And not at all. He's still super tough, super gritty. He knows how to play the humorous elements with Deadpool. I think the great part about this being sort of like a buddy comedy between Deadpool and Wolverine is, as you might expect, you have the one character who's the complete straight man who doesn't take any jokes, who's just there to get the job done. And then, of course, you have Deadpool who's just there to goof off and just tell dick jokes all around. And I think that dynamic works really well. And Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds have phenomenal chemistry together as actors. If you've seen this press tour, you know these two get along really, really well. And I'm happy that Hugh Jackman was able to come back for this last role. I don't think it ruins the legacy of the character, like I've been seeing some people say. This is very clearly a different Wolverine than you saw in the Fox X-Men universe. This is a different variant. Regardless of how you feel about the multiverse in the MCU, I'm personally getting a little tired of it, but it does not ruin the legacy of the character in any way. I think the new actors that we saw were also great. The villains of this movie, Matthew Macfadyen, who plays Paradox. I love Matthew Macfadyen. Like, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Like, as a fan of Succession, I think he was perfect as Tom, as like this outsider who's this very like prim and proper guy. Who's always very like kind of nerdy, but is also very self-conscious. The character of Paradox also feels that way, where he's someone who's been at this job for a long time as the head of the TVA, but no one gives him any respect. So him doing like this big mission of like kind of like destroying this world, he feels like, oh my gosh, I'm finally going to be getting the job done. And I think he just the way Matthew Macfadyen delivers his lines, he knows how to make the smallest moments just kind of funny, just in his line delivery. He has a very funny British accent, in my opinion, just because of how proper and how traditional he sounds. I think is really fun. And Emma Corrin as Nova. The first time we introduced Nova, this character just she's without spoiling anything, she's related to another mutant in the X-Men universe, and her powers are very similar to this person's, just 10 times more powerful. Like, the first time we meet her, she's just sort of like gleefully toying with everyone, because throughout the entire movie, she knows how much more powerful she is. And I just think Emma Corrin is a very, very good actress, and I think they just brought a lot of character and a lot of emotion to this character that was really, really needed for you to get invested in this story. Like I said, I think this movie works as a great send off to the Fox universe. Again, I don't want to get into spoilers because I know how much this movie was keeping a secret from the trailers, even though I do think the trailers gave away a little bit too much. I'm not going to say what they gave away. This movie has some really, really fun references to the Fox universe. This isn't really a spoiler. When you get to the Void, you realize that it's where all the characters that used to be in the Fox X-Men universe or anything involved with that, I'm not going to say anything, but anything involved with that might have gone. So you get a bunch of actors coming back to reprise these roles and other things. I think every actor they got to come back worked really, really well. There's one in particular that we haven't seen in like 20 years, and he was so much fun, and it was a blast seeing all these characters work together in these fights, playing off each other. No one seemed to have missed a beat, and I really, really love that. Even some characters that may have been in less than stellar movies are now given their time to shine, and I think that was really, really fun. I think my final thoughts on this movie is definitely messy. This movie definitely is not perfect by any means. I do think the constant lampshading of itself, the constant making fun of itself, is going to leave some people maybe a little disappointed and a little just uninvested of like, if the movie isn't going to take itself seriously, why should I be taking this movie seriously? But I think the reason why I really, really like this movie is because it doesn't take itself seriously. I think it's just come to grips of like, hey, look, this is super over the top. This is super not serious. If you're not going to get on our wavelength, fine. we're just going to tell our own movie. I love that it doesn't try to get super into the MCU. And if this is the last time we see Deadpool as a character, I do think it was a really, really satisfying way to send off the character. If I were to review this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, which is how we do this at Cinemaster's reviews, 0 being absolutely awful, 10 being absolutely incredible. This might go down on rewatches. I could see it, but I'm still on a high from when I saw this movie, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think this was a really, really good superhero movie and a phenomenal send-off to the Fox universe. Again, without spoiling anything, the credits is a big love letter to the X-Men films, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't getting a little emotional by the end. If you're a fan of these movies, please see this in theaters. I think there's no other way to really go see it. Again, if you're not a Deadpool fan, this movie's not going to do anything to change your mind. I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, I definitely really, really like Deadpool and Wolverine. But that is all we got tonight. Thank you all so much for watching this week. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video store. It helps grow our channel a lot. Next week, we got Trap, M. Night Shyamalan's new thriller with Josh Hartnett. I've been super excited for that ever since I saw those trailers, as well as a few other movies. I really hope Sing Sing comes to Arizona. Because I've been hearing some really, really great things about that. So if that does come out, I am going to be reviewing that. If not, I know Dee Dee comes out. I know Harold and the Purple Crayon comes out. So I'm going to be seeing one of those two. I'm really happy I'm going to be able to see at least 2 movies next weekend. Really want to get back into the groove of things. Again, thank you all so much for watching this week. I know it's been a few weeks off. Just been dealing with some stuff, as I said. But thank you all for watching. And remember, as always, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.